Hey everybody, I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching Sit Down. Look who's here. Costa Ronin, star
What's
from
up?
Homeland. What's up, man? How are you?
Good, DJ. How are you?
I'm doing great. I gotta tell you, Homeland is one of my favorite shows on TV, and your character has been on a fascinating journey. So, what's it been like being a part of this whole experience?
I mean, how can you describe something like that? It's really just like it's really stepping into an alternative reality a little bit in a way where everything is real and you touch everything, you feel everything, and of course when you get to work with the material like we do, it makes it really special. You really take off in the shoes of your character and you get to live in this alternative reality for the duration of the season.
Hmm.
So it's really quite cool.
Yeah, I think one of the best parts of the show is that they're these amazing characters, and then it's like everything else going on around in terms of what's going on in the Middle East, in terms of what's going on with Russia. What's most intriguing when you think about your experience on that show?
Well, I've been a fan of this show since it came out from episode one, and I never thought I would be a part of it. And then, of course, when an opportunity came up, it was really quite surreal because I literally have a chance to walk into one of my favorite shows,
Hmm.
and it was a really special moment. The show did get to travel around the world quite a bit, and I've only been a part of it for the last 2 years. But even then, we shot in Virginia and in Hungary and Morocco and LA. So um, all we can do as actors, is just really create wholesome people, wholesome characters, and then let them kind of play in the reality created by the writers and the directors, and kind of hopefully help them realize their vision. So I guess that's why we're there.
Hmm. Yeah, no doubt about it. And with Yevgeny, I mean, it's like you kind of start out going one way with your character, and then it also shows like the duality of being able to kind of go on this little dark path, but also showing the human emotions. So, what's it been like, kind of playing with the crossroads there?
Well, I wouldn't really call it crossroads. They are part of the same character, and everything you see this year with Evgeny existed last year as well. We just didn't see it, and that's kind of, you know, when you work on a character, you kind of think of it as an onion, and kind of you create a core, and then you cover that core with different layers of the character. What I had to do this year is kind of figure out how my onion can create another onion.
Mm.
Because Evgeny had to figure out how to work with Carrie, how to find an organic way to work with Carrie. Yes, there is an element of respect and understanding and really quite fascination, because they really are sort of mirrored images of one another. And in a way complete one another, and they understand one another, but at the same time they still work for their own people, for their own flags, and they're still incredibly loyal to the purpose that they have, to their missions individually, and at the same time they have to find a way to kind of cooperate,
Mm.
which is really quite interesting to explore.
Yeah, it's two people that can coexist from two separate countries. And I mean, when it comes to Carrie Matheson, I mean, the layers of that onion, you could peel back and talk about it all day. So, what's it been like seeing Claire Danes play that role? And just Carrie as a character is one of the best on TV, just in terms of the vulnerability, the strength, the bravery. What do you like about that whole thing there?
I mean, what I like about Claire creating that character is really quite remarkable. Like I said
Mm.
before, I've been watching the show since the beginning. Um, it's what is really cool, I think, is that she is able to get in that character instantly. We could be having a conversation about Christmas and kids and what we're gonna do after, and which cool restaurants we've been to in Marrakesh. And then literally when they call action, it's on. You can see that in the eyes, you can see that energy change. And she is an absolutely remarkable artist. And it was a gift to work with somebody like her and somebody like Mandy.
That's awesome. So, I was reading up on your story. Born in Russia, like you spent a ton of time in New Zealand, right?
Yeah, 5 years.
So, who do you identify with more? Is it the Russian blood or the New Zealand blood? Because a lot of these roles have, kind of popped up in the whole Russian world.
Russian, absolutely. I am Russian.
Mm-hmm.
I was born and grew up in Russia. My heritage is Russian. The fact that I got a chance to travel around the world gave me this insight into people's psychology. And it is something I studied. I studied political science. I studied psychology. So it's interesting to see how, regardless of where you are in the world, ultimately we are we are the same.
Mm-hmm.
People are the same. We are born the same. We have the same fears, the same ambitions, the same loves, the same desires. Coming back to Maslow's pyramid of needs. But what makes us different is the society we live in. It's the old Jungle Book.
Mm.
You take a kid, put it in the jungle, he becomes a Tarzan. And that's ultimately what it is. You can take a Russian kid, put him in New Zealand, he's going to become a Kiwi. You can take a New Zealand kid, put him in Russia, he's going to become a Russian. But ultimately the roots, your own sort of, that sort of collective DNA that you tap into on a molecular level, that still exists. And while I do understand the perspective of other peoples from around the world, New Zealand, Australia, the US, and all the other travels I've done, I think it's really quite interesting to be able to understand where people are coming from. And with the shows that I was fortunate enough to work on, both the Americans and Homeland, the writers of those shows really try to do exactly that, to show the perspective of the other side. And with Haqqani, with anything that was happening in Berlin, with Yevgeny, the writers were able to kind of plant those seeds, what if, and get this sort of, the actors bring in that life to those characters. And then the audience already decide, okay, well, maybe there is another side. How fascinating is that? So it's really been quite cool.
I think that's one of the most amazing parts of just the evolution of TV. You think back 10, 15 years ago, a character like yours, it's like, yep, that's just the enemy. We never see the human side. We never empathize or really understand what a character like yours is going through or what's going on in the Middle East. And I think that's really important, especially at a time like now, where it's like, you could really get a very stereotypical view of who a Russian person is. But like you're saying, there are a lot more similarities than differences. And this show certainly portrays that.
Well, Russian people haven't really changed the same way the French people hasn't changed, Italians haven't changed, Chinese haven't changed, people from around the world, they haven't changed. What's changed is the prism through which we portray those people. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say in Hollywood, I'm talking about the world cinema. There's kind of, it's no news that, there's been stereotypes for years. And we kind of tapped into those stereotypes. Some shows continue to tap into those stereotypes. Some films continue to tap into those stereotypes. And it's really quite boring and uninteresting. And the audience has become a lot smarter and a lot more switched on to what really is happening, what people are really like. And part of it has got to do with information exchange. Part of it has got to do with things like this, where you and I are sitting around different parts of the country or the city or the world and have a conversation. So it's not as easy. And I think also from after the Americans, the industry has changed. We were able to let the creative teams and the writers and directors and actors, let them believe that it's okay to have a foreign actor, not just a token, diversity actor on set, but actually drive the story and be the hero of the story and have his own show, have his own storyline. After the Americans gave birth to Narcos, which was, completely in Spanish. It gave birth to things like Unorthodox, which is completely in Yiddish, or mostly. Things like, The West World, which has episodes after episodes in Japanese and other languages. So things like this did not exist before the Americans. And in a way, that show changed the way we look at the foreign characters now. Not just Russian. I mean, clearly we tap into any story from around the world, and we understand that we love to read subtitles. We love to see what the other side has to say or to do, and kind of relate and make that world a bit smaller and a bit friendlier.
Yeah, we don't care about subtitles. I mean, Parasite certainly proved that at the Oscars this year. It's like,
exactly.
It's a great movie. It's great acting. That's all that really matters.
Because ultimately, there's only 7 myths, and every story, as you know, and every story is basically just a kind of finding a way to tell that story in a different premise, really. And so, how we tell this story, if the story is told right by the creative teams, then you can just switch off the sound altogether, and you will understand what's going on, because the emotions and the intents are going to be so clear. And that's a challenge. And this is why the shows and the films that are sort of subpar, they're realizing it now. They're realizing that, okay, well, we got to step up the game, because there's the other shows that that are on a different level. Because the higher authentic actors, the higher, the right authentic characters, and not the token, hashtag diversity actors.
Right, that stuff goes a long way for sure. What are you gonna miss the most about this show? I think TV watchers are gonna miss it, but what do you think will be the memory that you hold on to for years going forward?
From Homeland?
Yeah, from Homeland.
The people. Absolutely, the people. A few weeks ago, I started doing. It's already sort of when the quarantine started. I started doing Instagram Live podcast after each episode, just to give something back and kind of try to keep the Homeland family together a little bit and give people an opportunity to interact and reach out, because you have a chance, I have a chance, but many people don't.
Yeah.
And it's really been quite remarkable from the point of view of the new friends that I made and the old friends that I made who came in and reached out, and sort of it's really quite remarkable, the human factor that kicks in, and the effect that things like this have in the world. Yeah, so the people will be definitely the strongest factor I walk away with.
How about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? What was the coolest part of that experience?
I mean, where do you begin? It's you get a chance to work with the director every actor wants to work with, and so it really has been a dream come true. And it wasn't from this sort of fan point of view, and of course I've watched all of his films before that even became an idea, but because he was able to, he made his own mark in Hollywood, and he stayed on his own rails. He did not become part of the system. He continues to make his own films. He continues to rewrite history the way he wants to rewrite, and people flock to see his vision, which is incredible. The man is an absolute genius, really, really. I mean, he can in the conversation, he can just quote 1969 Vietnamese film. He remembers all the characters, all the lines of dialogue. He really is genius. My part in the film was quite small, but the character who I played in real life was massive as far as the Tate murders go, and so working on that character has been quite a tremendous experience, because I had to basically go in and research that era and research what actually happened in Cielo Drive, and kind of the different reports and the books that came out as a result of it. So I guess the character research and the world research is always the most interesting for me, the most incredible exercise, and any actor can do.
How long was the Yevgeny research for Homeland?
A long time. First of all, it's kind of constant. It doesn't stop. I started shooting Homeland at the same time as I was shooting the last season of The Americans. So while Oleg Burov was already worked out and he was very close to me, Yevgeny wasn't. So I had to work him out and kind of keep them in bubbles, because I was shooting concurrently between New York and wherever we were shooting Homeland at that point in time. So there was a lot of flying around, but ultimately the main thing was to make sure that the characters did not bleed into each other. So the decisions that are made by Oleg are not the decisions that are made by Yevgeny. And so for Oleg, I had to kind of research the spy game of the first half of the 20th century, and for Yevgeny, the second half of the 20th century, the 21st century, because obviously the things that Yevgeny would know, Oleg wouldn't get a chance to experience, So it was interesting from the point of view, most interesting from the point of view of getting to talk to actual operatives from CIA, FBI on one side, and KGB, FSB, GIU on the other side, and people who kind of, went from one side to another. Because from the actor's point of view, from the character, what was important to me is to understand the thinking process of the character and how he thinks. And you can't get it on the page. You can't get it on, reading a book about these guys. You have to really spend the time and trying to get under their skins and look them in the eyes. When you look those people in the eyes, you understand something that, they're part of the world that you and I don't get to experience. And it's tragic, very tragic. It's not all James Bond. Ultimately, you know, when you put on a mask every day of your life, you sometimes forget who you really are. And that's what happened to many of them. You know, the life takes over, just like for Carrie, just like for Yevgeny. And that's why we love watching those characters, because they do things that we never will.
Yeah, we'll never stop enjoying that. And Costa, it's been a great run. Really enjoyed it. Thanks so much for jumping on, and we'll talk to you down the road, all right?
Of course, all the best. Take care, DJ.